When we're playing a piece of music, we very often look at dynamics and we treat them like a noun. They become a volume. So piano indicates soft or forte indicates loud. Now, there might be an aspect of volume involved with these dynamic markings, but actually dynamics aren't just nouns. They're adjectives. They're describing something. It's being dynamic. And so how can we be dynamic? And so when we look at something like Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, it's interesting because in an early manuscript, Mendelssohn wrote the words allegro con fuoco. Now there's an intensity to con fuoco with fire, but we often see it as being quite an external energy and intense drama, whereas in the solo part he marks piano. So I think that Mendelssohn was trying to suggest something which was much more internal. And maybe he had a conversation with Ferdinand David, and David was learning the concerto. It was written for him, and he suggests, maybe in one of his early performances to Mendelssohn, Mendelssohn said, no, that's not what I intended. And so in a later editions, in the published editions, we have a change in the tempo markings and the expressive markings. So we have allegro, molto, appassionato suddenly comes into being. But I think that this is important because then we're looking at this concerto and we're saying to ourselves, okay, so if this is an internal energy and an internal passion, appassionato, then maybe it's about ardency. And there's where the sound is that we need to create, a sense of ardency in the sound. Now this then becomes another important thing, is that when we look at our senses, very often we're dominated by our sense of sight, and then maybe our hearing comes next. And the other senses, like our olfactory senses or our sense of taste or our sense of touch, are suppressed by these strong, dominant senses. So as a violinist, we need to then look at how we can integrate our sense of touch to what we hear. And the really great players are fantastic at that. So when we look at the beginning of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, we have these almost appoggiatura figures, these yearning figures, which makes sense in terms of ardency. So we have this, and we can ask ourselves, okay, so let's vary the speed, the pressure, the point of contact to get the sound that I think creates that sense of ardency. So we could go, the next one seems to be more intense. So how can I do the next articulation of this appoggiatura, this yearning figure? And create that sense of ardency. And there's the challenge of the concerto. How can I integrate my sense of touch and my hearing to produce the narrative that I think Mendelssohn's trying to offer in his markings for this concerto?